It's great to see such a great turnout, especially this time of the afternoon. And good. So yeah, my name is Sukhpal. I'm the customer success manager for Dun Bradstreet in the UK. And I wanted to quickly introduce my customer before they present. For those of you who don't know, Dun Bradstreet are one of the oldest Mendix customers. I think one of our customers for I've seen some nodding heads. Darren is nodding his head. So for around 6 years or so back in the UK, running a number of applications with us and doing some great stuff. Got one of the strongest technically enabled teams in the UK as well, with a wide array of skills. And I've been asked to say a few good and interesting things about the two gentlemen on stage today. I'll let them elaborate about this. But Howard Roberts is one of the program managers at Dun Bradstreet. Got to know Howard nearly 2.5 years or so ago, and we've had a tremendous journey. Interesting fact about Howard is he says that he's got dead people in his front garden. I'll let him elaborate on that.
I don't say, it's true.
It's true.
And I'm not carrying an axe, and we're not locking the doors. I actually live in a converted church, so it's perfectly legitimate that I would have dead people in my front garden, okay? So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Richard Clarke, from the business side of Dun Bradstreet, so we wanted to kind of showcase how business and IT are collaborating, which the gentleman will talk about. Interesting fact about Richard is last year, Richard, out of 6.5 million people worldwide, was number 1 in the Football Fantasy League. So that's amazing, right?
Hey.
I think that,
Thank you.
And so you stop there, Sukhpal.
Only for a 2-week period, but it still felt good. Yeah.
Still, that's an amazing achievement, right?
Thank you.
But there's no fantasy about what they're going to talk about, and took, I think, 6 to 7 months to build an application in time with almost all the functionality on budget, and I'll hand over to the guys to kind of talk about this, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sukhpal.
Thanks, Sukhpal. Hi, everybody. Just for those of you who may not know about D&B and the worldwide network of companies that we partner with, we're a data company. Fundamentally, we don't really make anything physical, but we make information products. So we make products that have company information in them. This might be used for risk management, for helping our customers accelerate their sales and marketing programs, or manage supply and compliance risk. So that's kind of what we do. We have a database with approaching 350 million company entities or business entities worldwide, and we are networked to information providers in markets around the world who share their information with us on a partnership basis, so that we can maintain international consistency with the data. So hopefully that's a quick grounding for you in what D&B does. What was our particular business challenge with this project? So our project, called it Project Thor. Our project was asked to create a new capability for the worldwide network. This was designed around financial statement data. So companies, as you probably know, have to file financial statements in their country on an annual basis. Different filing requirements exist in different countries, different formats to financial data, different levels of maturity in terms of the technology that underpins that data. So it's in a very, very disparate state in local markets. And even Dun & Bradstreet's products today, most of them still only display the local view of what the financial information looks like. So some of our competitors were often doing a lot of data aggregation, and they would pull data from maybe up to 150 different suppliers of that data together, but then they would put it into a standardized form. That standardized form has a lot of benefits with it. It's easier to query. It's easier to consistently look at the data across international geographies. So we had a kind of competitive disadvantage there. So for a number of years, our worldwide network partners wanted to compete in that space. And so this project was aiming to pull together the financial statement information from each of those partners together into a single place, put it into a single data source, and then make it available to customers in as many flexible ways as possible. So definitely a need for a user interface to query the data, definitely a need to deliver that data in batch, just in blocks of data so it could be consumed by our customers, and also the need to API it and integrate it into customer applications. So, full set of UI features required, and build a team around the world with our partners. Obviously, we had a central team that was working on the capability, but we also needed to rely on local expertise in each of the markets, because it was the local financial subject matter expert that would really know how their data is linked together and how it would map to a common format. So there was a massive virtual team that we had to put in place to achieve this. And we had 6 months to do it last year, to go from nothing to launching something called a minimum viable product, or an MVP, which was, in inverted commas, good enough for the marketplace, good enough for us to compete in the market for the first time on standardized financials. And one of the other challenges, I guess, that we faced was that we had 4 sponsoring partners. All those partners had slightly different sets of priorities. So one partner in particular definitely saw the use case for the user interface in their market, but another partner is more about the integration of the data, delivering it in batch, delivering in APIs. So those partners have come together to fund the project, but they all want slightly different things. So one of the challenges to our program is to keep everybody happy with a balanced set of features. So we felt that using an Agile methodology to do this, and coupling that Agile methodology with the use of Mendix for the front-end development was the way to go. So I'm going to hand over to Howard. We'll do a bit of a tag team, and Howard's going to talk you through a bit about the structure of the team.
Okay. So no IT presentation would be complete without a Dilbert cartoon. And obviously the premise of this one is if you use an Agile process, you can do everything with much less resources, time, money, etc. An important point here, really. Obviously, Richard's talked about Project Thor and a little bit about its history there. When it started off, it was actually originally proposed as a waterfall project. And the reason it didn't progress on this, on that basis, is that the time to delivery was 2 years, and the cost was circa around $5 million. Now, obviously, as soon as you start talking about that length of time to get value to the customer and that amount of money, all the interest tends to leave the room, and you don't progress, and that's exactly what happened. Now, obviously, as Richard's talked about, there was such a strong desire due to our competitive disadvantage that we really wanted to progress this. So what we did was we did a proof of concept. This has been talked about largely in the other sessions out there in Mendix world today, but we performed a prototype to gain belief from the business community in what we could do potentially. We built a prototype. We did that wholly in Mendix. It took 8 weeks, and we spent $30,000 doing it. Okay, so if you just reflect on that for a moment, back to what the original cost would have been, and that really that was very successful. That gave us all the buy-in that we needed to actually then move on to the full project. So $30,000, 8 weeks to develop the prototype. Okay. Subsequent to that, we then developed the actual MVP, as has been talked about, within 6 months at a total cost of $1.1 million. Okay, so obviously it's a minimum viable product, but you also note the time to customer is significantly lower than had we done it with any other methodology. Okay, and talking about the team, there's lots of people in the room who are very good at maths, I'm sure. If you read the numbers, what you'll see there is the team had 23 people within it, spread across the usual functions within the IT landscape. One thing you will notice is that there are only 2 Mendix developers assigned to the project. Okay? A couple of reasons for this. First of all, we're a data company, right? Ultimately, we're not a software company, we're a data company. And most of the intensive effort is in building that, what we refer to as a back end. So it's all built in Amazon AWS, including the associated API. It's all custom built by us. That was the intensive effort. We've got 88 million financial statements in the product, 28 million companies. Right? That's the sort of scale of data that we're talking about. So it's very intensive, and obviously that means that we've got quite a substantial, what we refer to as back-end team. But also, Mendix makes it easy. It makes it easy to develop the UI. So we only needed those 2 part-time developers to actually do the UI for us. So that shows the benefits that we've all gathered here today to talk about. And Richard, I think it's now back to you. Yeah. True tag team.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Howard. Okay. So thanks for the update on the numbers. It's a very good point. When we talk about, I was very impressed to hear that there was this data hub product coming out this morning, and thought that might be something that we'll have a look at D&B. But the scale of data that we need to process, at D&B when we're making a product or delivering a service is huge. It's kind of right in the middle of what we do, and therefore the core of this capability is really the financial data set. But in the words of Go Make It, that's exactly what we did. We just went and built it. Some of the key milestones that we hit, and made sure that we hit, as shown here. Definitely, we wanted to get the end-to-end product flow set up as quickly as we possibly could. So a test version of the product that laid the infrastructure out from head to toe, and was testable. We did that in 2 sprints. We had a dev environment version of the product after just 1 sprint, so there was something to look at after 3 weeks, something to show stakeholders. We also had a worldwide network conference that was taking place just less than 2 months after the project started, really. And we wanted to be ready to take advantage of that conference. It's not quite the same size as this conference, but I think there's someone in the room who actually organised the conference, actually. But I know that it was very important to get the opportunity to showcase the user interface and showcase what we built at that conference. So that was having that immovable goal, that fixed time there that we had to deliver to was really good, because it focused the team, and we made sure that we didn't slip a date, and that we had enough functionality to do that brief demo at the launch. We also made sure we launched a beta test version of the product, because there's so many potential use cases of this capability. It was aimed at a very more sort of generic data analyst type persona that might work for a corporation somewhere and be looking at that data, but we're actually wanting to do a test and learn with this product. We don't know precisely where it will be a success in the market, which industries, which type of roles will want to consume this. So a beta launch, we're getting feedback from our partners and feedback from our consultants, was really, really important. And again, we did that after 4 months. That still gave us time to make any changes in relation to that feedback to the final version that we went to market with. But we launched on time, and then, of course, it became a challenge about keeping going. So what do we do now? And of course we need to make some sales in order to generate the revenue to keep the team going, and so that's what we set out to do. So just before I hand back to Howard on some of the more technical side of things, just a few learnings from me and a few learnings to pass on. I can't underestimate how important it is to manage the expectations of your stakeholders. Really, really important. You can never spend enough time on doing that, even though you might have agreed a scope, because you're applying an agile approach and you're empowering a product owner, which was my role, to make most of the decisions for the team. You have to balance focusing on, on all those user stories, on getting all those features developed, along with updating people on how it's going, getting people ready for the commercial launch, managing any change, but also managing, the expectations that may be different from the partners. So that's a key thing. I think we found as well that, having a good work management tool, and we use Jira, but there are other ones out there, was really useful in terms of prioritizing the user stories, managing the workflow through the team, and visibly seeing very regularly the progress we were making. And a couple on the sort of on the don't side, really important to sort of understand that if we were an agile team working in a predominantly waterfall development culture, so there aren't that many agile teams across D&B, and whilst that meant we were delivering quickly, whenever we had an external dependency with another team, that could really slow us down. So we found that managing those dependencies and making sure that you give as much notice for things to be done by other outside influences is really, really important. Okay, Howard, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Indeed, yeah. Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Richard. So, principles. We had some key principles that we applied when we started this out, as Richard's just highlighted. In an organisation that's largely waterfall, there are a number of things that potentially could impact and slow down. So we had to really tune our processes and our thoughts about how we were going to approach this. First of all, a favourite of mine, use thick-of-the-pack technologies. I don't want to buy something or use something that's supported by one guy in a shed. It has to be enterprise solution. Remember, we're selling the end product to customers, right? So far, a lot of the interest we've had in the product and sales has been tier 1 bank customers, right? They don't want something that's going to be difficult to support or manage or whatever, right? So thick-of-the-pack technologies is a key one for us. We also have to be very honest about the things that we're going to do and we're not going to do. There are a number of use cases potentially within the product that stepped on the toes of existing corporate systems, okay? We're not in the business of rebuilding Microsoft Excel. How long's that been around there? Decades, right? We're not rebuilding PowerPoint. We're not rebuilding Power BI or other similar products, okay? So you have to be really honest about what we were going to do and what we were not going to do, okay? Our architecture is entirely cloud-based, as I've talked about. It's on Amazon. In fact, we're on Mendix Cloud. That's also on Amazon, right? It's serverless. It's very clean. We've started with no technical debt in terms of the architecture. We want a nice flow through. The data is updated as close to real time as is possible. We've got no insertion of any bottlenecks, okay? Our API that we use is the same API. It supplies the UI and our external customers. One API does a lot. It's very clean, very graceful architecture. Iterate. All right, so we did a large build last Friday night. We put the API, customer API live, okay? Another really key milestone on the project. We're doing another build this Thursday. Iterate, keep going at it, okay? This was already talked about this morning in some of the sessions. I like to think we don't break things, but there's always improvements out there, okay? You're only as good as your next build, so that's what we're aiming to do. Also, be honest, it's a process. When you start something with a set of outline ideas that then become requirements, you're not going to know everything, okay? You're not going to know all the things that you're going to do or the way you're going to approach them. Sometimes you'll hit upon a challenge that you won't know the answer to. So just don't avoid it, be honest about it, right? So the Agile term is spike, right? But essentially do a little proof of concept during your sprint, cut some time out for it, decide what you're going to do, because going down the wrong route could take you weeks, months offline, okay? So, do use that. Don't be afraid or avoid that as a technique. And this comes back to our use of Mendix again. One of the really key things is we're able to spend our time on the what's. Not on the hows, not how we're going to build it. We know we're going to build it. We're going to use Amazon, right? We're going to use Mendix. This is what we're going to do. We're going to build an API, okay? That we managed to concentrate all our time on the what's, not on the hows. There's no arguments amongst the development community about what framework we're going to use or this, that. No, let's concentrate on the what's. Let's build some requirements, okay? This this for me was a really crystallising moment actually in the project, and funny enough, it wasn't about delivery, it was about people's attitudes. So we have a really good architect that we subcontracted onto the project, and he's a D&B lifer. He's probably been there for decades, right? And this is what he said. Okay, he says, I was sceptical about agile projects and processes, and yet now I've seen how this project is working, how it's delivered, I think we ought to do all our projects this way. That's quite a statement. Okay, for those of you that like architecture diagrams, hey, like, it's a bit like the Dilbert cartoon, I had to put it in there, right? So this is just a high-level view of our architecture. So as I said, it's all on Amazon. We take our data in as close to real time as possible. It's then transported into Elasticsearch. So effectively, that's almost like our database view, if you like, which is then propagated through our API, which is also in Amazon. That API feeds customers, also feeds Mendix, okay? Obviously, we've got lots of good stuff in there around protection. You know, we use a one login process, so all that's connected up to the API and the Mendix front end as well. And we don't just deliver APIs, we don't just deliver the UI product, although it's very important because the shop window to everything. We also have a batch capability, okay? So we can do offline batch with all this as well. So, you know, we've got 3 major planks in the kind of proposition there, okay? Right, so we came here to talk about Mendix, and here's some reasons why Mendix works really well for us, okay? I think one of the things that's really powerful for me is that you sat there with requirements and you can very quickly build them out into visuals, right? When you've got something visual, you've got something to put in front of somebody to capture their imagination, right? Output from an API, unless you're a developer, is not going to attract a lot of people's attentions, particularly from the business community, right? However, having a UI that you've built quickly in a few days that you can put out there and say, look at this, is this what you wanted? This is where we're thinking of going with this, really captures people's imagination, okay? So the fact you can do that and the flexibility around that is a really key point. The environment's pre-hardened, okay? There's also been a lot of talk in the conference today about browser compatibility, security, okay? These are really important points, right? We're fast moving, we're dynamic, but we're not going to do anything that's not in the best interest of our customers or the organization. Has to be secure. So we've got a great amount of belief in the platform. It's already pre-hardened. It takes a lot of pressure off the team. You know, we could spend sprints just looking at browsers, security, and so on and so forth. We haven't needed to do that because of the platform and the way it's organized, okay? Also, you know, the low-code environment isn't going to work for everybody. There are things you have to do technically sometimes that require a more intensive process. We can do that as well. Right? There's nothing to say that you can't. You can just build it in Java as well. Okay. Areas for improvement. There's always areas for improvement in any software. You know, Mendix is not a BI platform, and unsurprisingly, the charting capability is, in our view, a bit weak. And it's not terribly flexible. I think there's a couple of widgets out there that support it, okay? Understandable, it's not a BI platform, right? But, you know, that is an area of weakness within the capability in our view, okay? And I believe it's back to you, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, good. So just to sum up, and then we'll take any questions. Some of the good things, I think, you know, just to add one thing from a product owner perspective, I like Mendix and I like Agile as a combination. For me, I think it works really well if you have an 80-20 mindset to building and prototyping and that kind of thing. You know, build something up. It will not be perfect when you've built it, but then polish it up afterwards. If you have something visual that's 80% of the way there, you can then critique it and use the defect management aspects of Agile to tidy it up and make it good enough. And that was very much our mantra was, is this good enough for the marketplace? So to sum up, we did deliver on time, we did deliver on budget, we managed to get some more funding, and we are still together as a project team, and we're still working on more iterations of the capability. We've made a couple of key strategic sales already. One of them was in France to a tier 1 bank, and we have another opportunity with another big global tier 1. We seem to get in quite a lot of resonance with the financial institutions around the world. They like the standardized data set, they like the flexibility of delivery, and we're starting to get revenues coming in. Our agile processes have worked well, and we've had a lot of good feedback internally from other teams on wanting to learn for how we've worked. And we've also now got this really strong network of people in all the countries from a financial data set perspective. So if we've got any problems with data quality, or if we want to actually enhance the depth of the data set, which is something we're thinking of doing, then we've got our network of people to go back to and leverage. Howard's mentioned the graphical capability. Yeah, that was a bit disappointing. We've had to look at possible other ways to improve the sort of visual quality and the depth of the sort of statistical analysis that you can do in the tool, because it is an analytical tool as well as a data capability. So we need to do more with the data outside of perhaps a Mendix environment. And we, just other learnings. We tended to overload our sprints. That's probably my fault, giving the team too much to do in too short a period of time. And this often can lead to a technical debt of bugs and defects towards the end, which puts the team under a lot of pressure when you're getting near the launch date. So kind of like being able to size and learn about what your capacity is from an agile sprint perspective is really, really important. We had one or two really sticky bugs that wouldn't go away. We couldn't find them, we couldn't diagnose them properly. And actually it turned out that our environments upon which the Mendix platform was running did not have enough capacity, did not have enough memory in them. So a memory upgrade in those test environments, those staging environments, really helped us to suddenly those problems went away, and the number of error messages, the number of outages just dropped significantly. But that was kind of hidden, and actually nothing to do with Mendix at all. It was just our own resources were not adequately set up. So a couple of key learnings there. But overall, we're really proud, aren't we, Howard? We really like what we've done, and we see its potential. And we want to keep going. So any questions, please fire away.
There's our glamorous assistant.
Thank you. That's a really interesting presentation. Lots of high protein advice there, I think. Can I just ask, when you started to design the application, that first sort of discovery design phase, did you have a sort of sprint zero design phase, or did you just dive in with stakeholders and start capturing user stories?
Good question. We did have a sprint zero, so just to kind of lay it out timeline-wise, as I said, we did a prototype, proof of concept, and so the capability, or rather the background for that, was the kind of history of the waterfall project. So there's a waterfall project that was proposed. That didn't really get anywhere because of the timeline and funding required. And we sort of boiled that down into a synthesis of what it should be, used that in the prototype. And once the prototype had been demonstrated and everyone loved the output, then we had a sprint zero after that to then really bring together the requirements for the agile process. I know sprint zeros are kind of controversial. Some people don't believe in them, some people do, and so on and so forth. I think it was fundamentally important in this. We couldn't have started with sprint one. I don't think we were mature enough at that stage. So, we did have a sprint zero in tandem with a prototype. So we did some good things there, but we also got to be a bit lucky as well. And, those are the things that really made it work. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And if I could just ask one little cheeky question as well, just very quickly. I noticed there you're using Jira.
Yes.
I just wonder, at what point did you decide that the Sprinter just wasn't up to the job, and you used another user story management tool?
Oh, we're still on Jira.
Yeah, we like Jira.
Yeah, we like Jira.
So the Mendix Sprinter tool, I mean, we're still using that, but we're finding that quite restricted. And I just wondered, did you decide that actually it's just not up to the job, or did you always use Jira?
We always use Jira.
Okay.
We use Jira. We're an enterprise customer of Jira, and it's well embedded throughout the whole of D&B. So, whenever you look to do anything in Agile, whether you choose to use the Kanban approach or Scrum or whatever, Jira is the first place you go. So there was no other consideration given to any other systems. Most people in the organisation used Jira, happy with it. So was I. So that's what we went with. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Peter Lewinsky from Sentient. Thank you very much for the very nice presentation. Maybe I missed it, or maybe you cannot share it, but if you can, maybe then you could say a few words. What was the success of this product? What is the take-up with the customers? Have you actually sold this?
Oh yeah, I said a few things at the end. So we have a fairly early stage pipeline. We're going through the go-to-market launches in the different partner markets. So part of my role is to establish the commercial side of things. As I said, the pipeline is at a fairly early stage. We've made our first really large sale to a tier 1 French bank in recent weeks. They are going to consume both the UI, also the UI, API, and batch data into their systems. We're also looking at several others, about another half a dozen financial institution pieces of pipeline in the UK, in Singapore, and in France and Netherlands as well. Our US market is looking at launching the capability, but several of the countries that have contributed data have not yet gone through their full go-to-market activity. So we're in a kind of test and learn period, and at the minute it's financial institutions that seem to be most interested in this data set. Okay, thank you. There's one at the back. Super.
Thank you. So hi, I'm from Euler Hermes. We use Dun Bradstreet.
Ah, yes, big customer of DNB.
Yeah. Could you go back to the slide where you show your Amazon architecture?
Oh, yes, of course.
So, for our perspective, it's very funny because it's very close to what we use, actually. So we have Mendix as a platform for, let's say, intermediary applications. We have the API gateway on Amazon. We use your API on the left part.
Okay, yeah.
And I was wondering, compared to the maturity that you have on Amazon, why didn't you start doing things on React and Node.js, on ECS, ET2, or Fargate? Or
Sorry, could you just repeat that last piece?
Yeah. When I see your maturity on Amazon, I was wondering why you moved to Mendix instead of maybe doing your apps in React, Node.js, classic, development.
Yeah, I understand the question. There's a couple of good reasons. First of all, we've effectively got a Mendix shop at DNB, okay? Particularly out of the site that myself and Richard work in Marlow office in the UK. As Sukhpal talked about, it's probably one of the most long-standing Mendix development teams around, and that team has very quickly got a reputation of delivering really good customer products really quickly. So it was more a case of why would we not use Mendix? Bearing in mind the things that we've got in the presentation and the things that we know. We chose not to use certain parts of Mendix. For example, we don't use the database. We're using Amazon. And the reason for that is, as I've talked about, we've got a huge amount of data coming in from quite a disparate supply chain. So, if we think about the numbers there, 88 million financial statements, it's spread across 42 countries at the moment. That's a lot of data to deal with. So we needed a lot of firepower in the back end. And, DNB is very much moving towards Amazon serverless sort of architecture generally. So that was our thinking there. In terms of APIs, we use in DNB other technologies like Apogee, for the gateways and the rest of it. But we're a rapid, dynamic team, and there are occasions where we've outpaced the other technology teams, and we have to make our own independent decisions, which is why, with approval, doing the right things in the right way, we have gone for things like AWS Gateway, for example. So I don't know if that completely answers the question. But it's more that Mendix is the incumbent and it's what we're good at, and we like it, and it certainly works for us. And it comes back to that point on the slide I said we wanted to concentrate on the what's, not on the how's, right? You know, this is about developing systems and getting customer value as quickly as possible. So we don't want to get too bound up in the hows, even if, you know, the tech nerd in me really likes all that stuff, right? We want to get out there and start building the what's. What are the requirements that Richard really wants to see? So bit of a convoluted answer, but you know.
So in fact, you wanted to focus on delivering your API and wanted to have facility to develop portals in an easy way, agile way for your customers.
That's a good summary.
Yeah.
That's you said what I said much better.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, if I can also answer that question for
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty good question, by the way. So I recall a conversation Howard and I had a few months back when we were initially when you came up with the concept of the application, and you said to me, I wish I'd known about Mendix in my previous roles,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
when you
yeah.
worked at the BBC and some of the tier 1 banks that you're speaking about. Because in the time, and I remember afterwards you said to me, in the time that we've built an MVP, in my previous roles, we would still be discussing what technology to use to build this application, right? You know, and that's like, I think, the secret sauce of kind of doing this. Questions?
Thank you. Oh, question for Richard, please. I'm sorry, my name's Aaron. I'm from CGIs.
Hello.
And I was wondering, since it's a relatively new market, and congratulations on selling it to a French, lovely French bank. How did you? How did the process go to convince them that Mendix is the way to go?
I think that particular opportunity was, well, first of all, it was an RFP response. So we were in a competitive tender type position. But the decision wasn't necessarily about Mendix or persuading them that Mendix was the way to go. The part of the sales process and part of the response to the RFP was to do a demo of the user interface and talk about the features that it could offer, and that demo was to like a business intelligence unit at the bank. So they really just wanted to know, you know, could they work with their own customer base, read it into a user interface, query the data to a sufficient level so that they could identify further sales and marketing prospects, you know, across the world. Particularly, they had a strong interest in the development we were doing around linkages data, so ownership data between companies, and that was a feature that they kind of, you know, insisted that was in the UI. It wasn't in the UI that we demoed to them at the time. It was a piece of development that we had in the pipeline. So we kind of promised it to them and told them that we were in the process of releasing it, which we have now delivered on. But yeah, in terms of, it wasn't necessarily about a Mendix evaluation, though. It was more about, you know, what do they want to do with the data, and again, I would just stress, you know, this is a capability rather than an out and out product. We obviously use Mendix as the window on that capability, but I personally believe it's true sort of monetization is possibly going to come from, you know, API consumption down the line. Okay, thank you. Any more? Hi, Miguel.
Did you go through an early adoption phase to gather feedback from, like, because the users would be your consumers, like your clients? How did that process go?
Yeah, we had a limited beta test window last summer, so we made an early release of a kind of cut down version of the product. I think it had about 11 markets worth of data, but a full set of features. And we gave, was it 6 weeks we allowed, Howard, I think,
Yeah, 6
for
weeks,
feedback.
yeah.
I mean, we tried to get that in front of, you know, end customers, but it was often more solution consultants and product owners in different markets that took a look at it and gave us their feedback, because I guess one of the things was don't do a beta test in mid-July to early September in Europe, because you just won't, everyone's on holiday. So especially at customers. So we got a little bit of customer feedback, but we got mostly feedback from consultants and information professionals in the actual partner teams themselves. But it was still a very, very valuable process, and steered us towards several changes that we were able to make before we launched.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Any more?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.